Hello, and welcome to the Lightning Talk, OER InReach, introducing your library colleagues to OER. My name is Shayna Pikela, and I'm the Scholarly Communication Librarian at Gonzaga University. This presentation will describe an internal professional development series we created at Gonzaga with the aim of increasing the baseline level of knowledge about OER among staff throughout the library. I'll start by sharing a little bit about the importance of InReach in the context of OER. Then I'll speak about Gonzaga and where our library is at with its OER support. Finally, I'll get into the meat of the presentation where I'll talk about the development of the professional development series, including the planning, implementation, and assessment phases. And I'll conclude with where we plan to take this in the future. Let's start at the beginning. Why is InReach important for OER work, particularly in libraries? And just so we're all on the same page, I'm defining InReach as the process of bringing information to and building relationships with internal stakeholders as opposed to external ones. InReach can benefit OER work in the library in several ways. Many of us attending this conference may hold the primary responsibility for OER work at our institutions. While it's so important to have OER leaders in a library, questions and opportunities for conversations about OER can come from any number of library interactions that we personally may not be present at. Establishing a baseline level of knowledge about OER across the library provides more opportunities for the library to advocate for and help support OER. Also, it's true that aspects of OER intersect with all library departments, whether the staff in those departments realize it or not. Making these connections clear to staff and librarians can help create more buy-in within the library itself. So at this point, I think it would be helpful for me to share some background information with you about Gonzaga, our library, and how we've been involved with OER in the past. Gonzaga is a private Jesuit university located in Spokane, Washington. In fall 2020, we had about 7,300 undergrad and graduate students combined. And on the right here, you'll see a picture of Foley Library, which is our main campus library. At Gonzaga, we don't have a formal OER program, but we do know anecdotally that we have faculty who are both using and or creating OER, or who simply have interest in doing so in the future. In the library, we've been trying to figure out over the last year or so about how we can best support this work. To date, all of our OER efforts have stemmed out of the library's Open Scholarship Committee, which I currently chair. The committee currently has 4 members who represent different library departments. In past years, the committee has hosted a handful of outreach events for students and faculty. In terms of internal staff development related to OER, we've hosted the occasional webinar and invited all library staff to attend. However, we realized that attending one-off webinars wasn't quite enough for our librarians and staff to truly feel comfortable engaging in conversations around OER. This got our committee thinking about other ways to communicate information about OER with our colleagues. We eventually came up with the idea to develop and pilot a mini internal professional development series. This became one of our goals for the fiscal year 2020-2021, which of course was during the height of COVID. It was important to us for the learning opportunity we were developing to be entry level so that the content would be accessible to all librarians and staff. We also wanted it to be well attended so that we were reaching as many people as we could. And finally, we wanted it to be highly engaging, even though we were planning for it to be online due to COVID. At the time we were planning the series, I'd recently become aware of NC State's Open Cafe event series, which they advertised as a, quote, bite-sized workshop series. They host a short event weekly for teaching faculty, so they have a different target audience than we were planning for. Each of their cafe sessions is only 30 minutes long, and it covers a different topic related to open education. Given our goals for a professional development series at Gonzaga, we thought that using a similar format for our own purposes would make a lot of sense. We named our series the OER Cafe Series and decided to hold it once a month during the spring 2021 semester. We generally tried to hold it at the same time on Tuesday mornings, though for scheduling reasons, we did have to do one of them in the afternoon. Each cafe session had a different topic that built on the previous one. Each session also had one or more interactive components. We got the word out by putting an invitation in our library's weekly newsletter, and we sent a calendar event invitation to all library staff. We marketed it as something that would be fun, informal, interactive, and educational. Of course, we held all of the cafe sessions on Zoom, so we created a custom Zoom background just for fun that we shared with participants in advance. Our planning process for each session essentially looked like this. In our committee, we would discuss topic and activity ideas and experiment with the activities on Zoom to make sure everything worked. Then we create an outline for the session and assign roles to the different session components. Lastly, I'd create a Zoom meeting and send it out with the invitation to the library, and we'd repeat that process each month. Here's an overview of the 3 sessions we held. In the first session, we focused on understanding what OER is and what it's not. We experimented with a lot of different interactive elements, including Zoom polls, Mentimeter polls, the Mentimeter quiz competition, and the Mentimeter Q&A feature. We may have gotten a little carried away with all of the activities in this one, but people definitely had fun with it. The second session focused on finding and identifying OER. We could tell from the Q&A at the end of the first session that there was still confusion about how to tell if something is or isn't OER, so we wanted to make sure to do some review of that in the second session. For the activity this time, we had one of the Open Scholarship Committee members pretend to be a teaching faculty member who was looking for specific OER for her class. After we laid out the scenario, we put the participants into breakout rooms and had them look for OER that met her criteria as a group. After a few minutes, everyone came back to the main room to share what they found or didn't find, and generally how the experience went. The third session was geared primarily towards our liaison librarians, though all staff were still invited, and it focused on finding subject-specific OER and how liaisons might incorporate that into their existing research subject guides. The activity in this session was dedicated work time to finding OER in the participants' specific liaison areas, or if they weren't a liaison librarian, in whatever area they had a personal interest in. But doing all of this in a space where they could ask questions of the committee and of their peers. In terms of assessment, we distributed a brief survey at the end of the last session. We asked participants for feedback on the overall usefulness of the sessions, future topics they would like to discuss or dive deeper into, and general comments or suggestions for the series. We later sent the survey out to all library staff since not everyone attended the last session. We ended up with 10 respondents, which is about a third of our library staff. Of those 10 respondents, 0% said that the sessions were not at all useful, which we were very happy about. 20% said they were moderately useful, and the majority, 80%, said that the sessions were very useful. Some of the topics people wanted to learn more about were things like how OER is actually being used by faculty on our campus, how to approach the topic of OER with faculty, and how to help faculty evaluate OER they find. Some other general feedback we got was that people liked the 30-minute length and that there was some desire for more conversations tailored to specific library departments. In terms of future directions, our committee really latched on to that last piece of feedback about having more tailored conversations to specific library departments. This past summer, we spent time thinking about the ways that OER connects to the work of our individual departments, and we began working on a literature review with different sections for each area of the library and how OER intersects with them. Our plan for the fall, which is currently underway, is to choose one or more of the articles from this lit review to read and discuss with each library department individually. In the spring, we'd like to bring everyone in the library back together for another OER Cafe to share things we learned during the department discussions and talk about a larger plan for the library's OER support. Finally, this is just a visual representation of how we've been thinking about those connections to library departments and the topics that have appeared in our lit review. Thanks so much for listening to my presentation. Please feel free to contact me with any questions at pekela@gonzaga.edu.